Hey guys, welcome to day two of the Global Travel Mate. My name is Akshit Mehta. Today, joining me is Shashi, who is the founder of startup Draper House, and he's been in the entrepreneurial space for several years now. Draper Startup House is a global chain of hostels which are targeted for young startups and entrepreneurs. So, Shashi would today be joining me on getting an overview of how hotels, hostels, B&Bs all around the world are going to cope up or maybe create a cope up mechanism in a post pandemic world. Hey, Shashi, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you? I hope I can live up to all the expectations that you're setting because I wish I had a crystal ball that I could just look at and tell you all the answers. But let's
Sure,
keep it
sure.
conversational and let's keep it a dinner table conversation and see what we can get out of this.
Yeah, I feel going a conversational way will be a great idea to take this ahead. So, Shashi, you've been part of the industry since a while. You've been part of the hospitality scene, and everyone's right now kind of in the thing that what is going to happen next? How is hospitality or how is the travel industry going to cope up? How do you think, adapting to such new things, gearing up to such new things, what is going to happen post pandemic? Like, is it going to be still the same how it was, or is it going to be a completely different picture that we see?
Hmm. So, my journey has mostly been as an entrepreneur. Okay. And when we started what is right now called Draper Startup House, we started as a co-living business for traveling entrepreneurs. So and then we were looking at what are the different kind of support system that there is for entrepreneurs, and you had these co-working spaces which you are in. We had these incubation and acceleration programs which exist in the world already. And then, we thought, okay, why don't we create a third expression by converting co-living and startup acceleration world together? And that's the birth of our space. So we don't come from a traditional hospitality kind of an experience or a background, but there is a certain amount of hospitality element in our business for sure. I just want to set that right because I am no hospitality guru in any sense, right? So I just want to make sure that I tell you that very clearly. So the second part of the question, how are we going to cope up post-pandemic? Man, this is, I always keep quoting this. So this is one of my favorite pandemic quotes, right? So there are certain times that decades go by when nothing happens, and then there's a week goes by where a decade happens, right? So now
Yeah.
we have sort of that has been applied to stock markets, to economies, to markets, and to businesses, and to everybody's life. And so it's taken a big hit, especially hospitality is in the front line of this attack, right? So I mean, all of these businesses are taking direct hit. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with this? That's a very good question, which I ask myself every day in the morning when I wake up and every time before I go to bed. Honestly speaking, I don't know. This is a every day to every week game, every week to an every month game. Like I'm right now out of Europe. I was hoping that these things are going to change by come July, and just in time for summer, we will be back to some normalcy, if not 100% normalcy. But that seems to have not happened. That is from a context of a hotel, right? It's a context from a hostel's point of view. But then there seems to be other areas that seems to be doing well as well in hospitality, which is, oh no, this okay. This must be some other speaker. I just saw a message saying the speaker is unwell. I thought my voice has gone bad or something. So there are other places which is wild travel experiences, camping experiences, solo travelers, slow mags. What's the new one that has come up right now? Another new thing that I'm sort of starting to see is governments opening up special visas for people to come in and live in their countries and turning their tourist infrastructure into a short-term to medium-term sort of dwelling or rather villages or neighborhoods or whatever you call it as. So these are the kind of things that I'm seeing. So broadly, these are sort of trends that I'm observing. Maybe somewhere we are headed in that direction, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
So yeah, I've also been seeing a lot of things, but what I saw in the last last 8 9 months since COVID-19 actually started and began hitting the globe, uh, the first thing was honestly everyone for themselves is something that I saw. Every country was just trying to get their people out. every country just wanted to keep their people in from going out, or so for example, the policies that America has been getting right now, to be very honest. Yes, they are doing it for the Americans. I agree that until a point, you would want to take care of the people who are living in your country and who are your citizens, But the travelers, yes, I think the travelers were the ones who suffered the most at that time, because either they were stuck, or they were or they were students out there, or maybe they were just expats who had gone for a meeting or something. So that's something that was like, honestly, I didn't have someone personally who was stuck out there, but I'm sure if I had someone who was personally stuck out there, I would know the reality of how it feels, so
Yeah.
because they say that till it doesn't hit you, you won't realize how hard it hurts.
Mm.
So that's something which I noticed, in the last 6 months. But now I am noticing that the thing that you said, that a lot of countries are opening up. They want people to come in. They want. There were a lot of countries who are dependent only on tourism. There are a lot of places dependent only on tourism. That's their bread and butter. For example, a place like Maldives, the only thing they depend on is someone coming in and staying at a hotel, or spending some money out there. uh, but I'm sure, even I actually read very recently that Maldives had actually opened up, completely for visitors to come in and start living out there, because otherwise what do? It's like
Yeah.
one of the most beautiful islands goes
Yeah.
down, if because when things are not used, like imagine a hotel which is not used for 6 months.
Hmm.
It's going to need a lot of upkeep once it opens up.
Yeah, I
So
think, interesting case when you say this that comes to my mind is Estonia, right? We have a space in Estonia and Tallinn as well, and Estonia is one of those really up and coming progressive countries. And Estonia has a very unique problem. Estonia is a small country, a fairly new country, and they have about 1 million people in population.
okay.
So, they went out and they realized very early in their formation, or rather the building up of the country time, and they realized that the only way for going forward for us would be is to build solid digital infrastructure. So they went out and built some really solid digital infrastructure. Then they realized, hey, we're sitting on this digital infrastructure. We can scale this infrastructure. How can we scale this? Because they had 1 million people and the infrastructure was way built for more number of people than 1 million people. And so they went out and started the e-residency program. So
Yeah,
they added about 1.5 million more, so
correct.
to say, artificial citizens into the system. Now these 1.5 million people pay taxes there. They don't live there. You don't need to provide them infrastructure. You don't need to give them housing. You don't need to build roads. You don't need to do any of that stuff, right? So they basically are all digital natives.
Correct.
And then now they opened up the digital nomad visas for people to flow in and spend some money there and get out. So now I think what probably I'm trying to say here is that countries need to get smart in where they need to spend their money going forward. So whether you want to put money in building hotels or do you want to put money into building digital infrastructure and try to see what else you can do. I don't know. I'm just I'm curious to see
Correct.
what happens there.
Correct. Makes sense. So,
All right. What's your next question?
so Shashi, you've got spaces in several locations right now. Like as you said, you have one in Estonia. If I had to kind of pick out any out of all the spaces which you have across the globe, which ones actually suffered the pandemic? Like, yes, okay, you might have had to make a hard decision at that kind of a time. So which was that market which got hit really bad, and how do you plan to kind of revive it, or has it revived by now already?
You know, uh, we have been hit quite badly in most of our spaces, and even now, travel is bad, and then certain economies are completely dependent on external tourists coming in. Like if you look at our Bangalore space, it's more of a domestic travel space, so border shutting or opening might not make that much of a difference. And ours is also a space that is sort of panned to the entrepreneurial community who need to travel, who have to travel to keep their business alive. And some we also have a huge community of people who keep coming and going. But nevertheless, we still have a huge impact on the business for sure. But if you look at something like, say, Singapore, that might not be the case. If you look at something like, yeah, Yangon, where we are in Burma, might not be the same case. Bali saw a different problem. Bali, a lot of people got locked in Bali, so a lot of people ended up staying till that
Correct.
borders opened up, and then the borders opened up, and then people left, and now there are no new people coming in. So there's a different kind of problem that comes up after you
Correct.
open up the border. You look at Thailand, that's the same problem. I mean, Tallinn is really high up in there, and then it was cold, and a lot of travel season starts and picks up only during this time, summertime. Now it has picked up, but it's just a small blip. Lisbon, which I'm responsible for, is also a big hit for us because, like Austin and Lisbon, two of these places which were quite a bit bad hit for us because we launched the property on the 18th or something of February, and by 19th we had to lock it down,
Oh my
right?
God.
That's the kind of situation that we were in. So I think these two spaces got hit quite bad, and then also, places like Lisbon is dependent on tourist economy, people coming in. Just a side note, as a fact, is that good about 40-45% of Portugal's GDP comes from tourism, which is a humongous amount of money for a country.
Correct.
Getting that out of the system is a big hit, right? So I would say, it's a long answer for your short question, but I would say Lisbon is pretty badly hit, and yeah, and Austin to a certain extent has taken some beating, a big hit, but I think most of the other spaces have taken pretty decent beating. Hey,
Okay.
but listen, we are optimists, we are entrepreneurs, we are here to figure things out, and we always keep figuring things out, and we always do different other things to create value for our community and move forward. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So, in creating value, as you said, very recently we had also come across an article where this hotel in Italy was offering a free stay to its guests. So, are there such things going on in the market in Europe? Like, are local businesses actually doing all of this, or have you come across any such cases, or
Have you
maybe
come across this concept called seeds to meet?
no?
That's an interesting thing. You should learn about it, right? So, early 2000s, there was this organization in Amsterdam. It's like a people movement organization. They came up with something called Seeds to Meet, and they were basically opening up co-working spaces all around the world, and people could use it for free.
Okay.
And this is not pandemic time. This is just regular boom time, right? So
Yeah.
typical boom time. They open it up for free, and interestingly, what they did was they said the only way you can pay me is by social capital. All right. So what
Okay.
by social capital means is go tweet about me, go blog about me, go pin my location, check in your social accounts, do your meetups here, tell your friends, creating that sort of a social capital impact for your customers. So I think about 30% of their business model was built to cater to the social capital, and the remaining 70% was built to cater to proper revenue coming in through dollars or euros or whatever they are.
Correct.
So that I thought was a very innovative business model because there was no marketing budget, there was no marketing dollars, and there is no events that you have to go out and do. There is no community budgets that you need to put aside. It works very well. So what Italy is doing, or one of the hotels in Italy is doing, is one of those experimentation. What I always keep, pushing ourselves, team, myself, and everybody around me and my friends is to keep thinking. How can you get innovative? How can you get creative about what you have, and how can you sort of use that to, this is not going to be a quick fix. Anything that you do is not going to be a quick fix. The fact that we are talking about this hotel in Italy itself means that they have achieved what they wanted to achieve. We don't know what the
Correct.
name of the hotel is, but I'm damn sure there are a lot of people out there researching the name of the hotel in Italy right now. Right?
Correct.
So they have created free marketing. So if you're sitting around, anyways, the business is not working well, you have a lot of team, you have a lot of people, you have a lot of time and bandwidth. Keep thinking about these creative ideas that might be the social capital that you can collect today when you open up, might be in cash form.
Correct. So yeah, makes sense. Yeah, we talking about it, having so many attendees listening to it. I'm sure the Italian hotel has got a few Google searches right now.
I mean, they
Uh,
got a newspaper article, right? I mean, that's more than
yeah,
enough. And you imagine some hotel getting written about during the pandemic time. I mean, who the hell can do that? I mean, nobody writes about it.
correct. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, now when so you are majorly been into the hostels and the co-living, as you said, the co-living plus the incubation kind of a scenario. Uh, a lot of people, yes, across Europe have used Airbnb and across the world as well. But now, people have started. I think they might become a little laid back on the fact that they don't want to give their s- personal houses or personal spaces to someone who is a stranger or who's booking it for a short term rental, or those vacation rentals like homestays or something. Do you think that'll be impacted? Do you think that kind of an industry would be impacted in some way, or people would still just for the just for the money or just for the finances of it, they would just do it?
You know, in order for us to take a shot at that question, we need to see where Airbnb today is or where the market is today, right? So
Correct.
Airbnb is not what it is for what it began or what it started from. It is not like that anymore. Good about, let me get the statistics right. I think if I'm not wrong, the last one I read, about 85% of the inventory that is out on Airbnb is all corporate controlled inventory. They're all
Okay.
spaces that are managed by companies, not necessarily individuals. So there is nobody living there. These
Okay.
houses are empty most of the time. And they only operate for a certain time of the year. Again, depends on what is your tourist season. And if it's a business kind of a city, then it operates probably year round. If it is not, then it operates only in a particular season. So that problem may not apply to Airbnb inventory anymore.
Correct.
But there is another problem that's popping up, which is Airbnb is losing its inventory quite fast because a lot of these companies now are turning to put these out into the market for long-term rentals, which is in turn dropping the rental, value quite low in the markets. Because a lot of these rental markets, rental, prices in San Francisco, New York City, Lisbon, Berlin, Amsterdam, all of these are artificially inflated because they would all put this inventory into Airbnb, and then there would be shortage of housing and the rents would go up and then the real estate value goes up. All of these things were connected.
Yeah.
Now, with a lot of inventory coming back into the market, the rents are falling low. Once when the rents falls low, the real estate value falls low, right? And then the market falls low, and then there's an inflation, and there's a correction, and there is a cascading effect of all of these things that goes on and on and on.
Correct.
So Airbnb had created a certain artificial problem in the market. Now that is probably due to be corrected in this kind of a situation. These are all theoretical, mind you.
Right.
These are not practical knowledge, but these are all behavior and theoretical sort of observations. So we will have to wait and watch what happens. But broadly, this is what is happening. So, in order to answer your question about will they get affected, I don't think so. I mean, few people who are actually putting up their second rooms and third rooms and stuff like that, they might start thinking twice or thrice about it. But majority of the inventory was not that way.
Okay, okay, makes sense, makes sense. So now coming to a little bit of the financials part of it, even in my session yesterday with Saurav, uh, he is also running co-living spaces, and he was like, Akshit, the first question people ask me is, how safe is your space? What are the hygiene standards you're following? Yes, agreed. Those questions are bound to come. In fact, to every business now, henceforth. But I'm sure this is even increasing operating expenses in one format in terms of maintaining the standard that someone is expecting.
Yeah.
Has it affected the budget like in an immense manner, or it's just okay, it's something we were not doing and we did not plan or we did not do, but we need to know that we need to keep such a budget aside just for maintaining the standards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there will definitely be an addition to the budget in terms of what you're going to spend. with all of these housekeeping and standards and stuff like that. Um, there is a question on the chat window, which probably might be something that will lead to the answer for this question, is that Airbnb is doling out sanitation kits, right, to
Correct.
its customers. Uh, Market works in very interesting fashion, right? If you go into any of these Oyo rooms, so to say, in India, I mean, you get these Oyo sort of toiletry kits with toothbrush and soaps and all that kind of stuff because they have to fight that thing out. I mean, a lot of the things, the money that's been spent on, especially in hospitality in these kind of places, are usually sponsored by some of these big brands because they are trying to up their own quality standards or brand
Correct.
standards, and also throw in these perks to rope and keep their customers in and stuff like that. So you will see quite a few of that happen. There's some more venture capital money being blown into giving us hand sanitizers and cleaning our floors, and that kind of shit will happen. That'll happen.
Yeah.
It's bound to happen. But that's jokes apart. But there will definitely be quite a bit of a yeah, like forest essentials. So there are a lot of a little bit of spend, of course, will be there on our side too, which is I think good. And hospitality by itself, I think, needs to keep those standards high, keep those standards up, because a lot of our hostels in India, were operated. Hotels also, to a large extent, were operated by people who were not trained to operate these kind of spaces, and they did it
Correct.
out of it sort of set a very different or a wrong example or an expectation for the industry itself. So there will be certain amount of consolidation that will come in there. People will be forced to get the right and act together, and keep their sanitation levels in check. Government will impose to making sure that the sanitation levels go high. That means the cost goes high. That means your room rate goes high. That means you'll have to spend more. Maybe travel will
Correct.
reduce in that process. But yeah, these are all the cascading effects again. Everything is sort of connected, right? So everything sort of, goes on from there.
Right. Right. So, like what Airbnb has done is they're giving out sanitation kits. In some way or the other, I just feel it's becoming a DIY method. You're leaving the onus on the client himself that you clean your house and take responsibility, even though we are providing you the house. So in some way, it seems kind of funny where they're telling. So to be not to be sounding wrong or something, but generally in the eyes of a normal human being, hospitality is more about where you've been given all the services taken care of, and they're taken care of with a nice nice standard, with a good level of satisfaction and everything. But it just feels like, for me, if Taj would start doing that, I would be like, okay, Taj is telling me to pay for the room, I'm going in the room and then I'm cleaning my own room.
I think
So
Taj is a
that,
wrong example because
no, it was just a hypothetical thing.
no, that's a good point that you have raised, because honestly, that sort of opens up another thread in our minds, right? Because the Taj, the Sheratons, the Hiltons, they don't have to care about, they already have very high standards of hygiene. They don't have to worry about it at all. I think they would have already been 10 steps above what the WHO requirements are, because that's just the clientele that they are talking to.
Correct.
What was my point? My point was, I forgot.
So we
I
were
forgot.
talking about DIY sanitation where I have to go and clean the room myself.
So what I was trying to tell you was that majority of the travel is also coming in from the millennial population, the Gen Z population, which is the up and coming sort of, that's one thing that the Gen Zs and the millennials are spending on, which is mostly on travel. A lot of the money goes into travel. They
Correct.
don't necessarily, they love DIY. They love sleeping in a tent, right? They love sleeping inside a van or a car. I mean, they don't care about all of, how much I have to keep my surroundings clean. If I'm able to sort of get it for 15, 20% of the actual cost, and allows me to be on the road for maybe 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, they would love it. I mean,
Nice.
so different folks, different strokes. Let's see what happens. That's
Oh yeah,
another thing that I also we need to keep in mind is that understanding your product, understanding your market, who your customers are, what is their behavior, and trying to see, okay, what applies to me, what doesn't apply to me. So the things that don't apply to you, don't even worry about it. Just simply stick to what you know, what you understand about your client. Just add to that and make that neat and clean.
Correct. So have you guys made changes? Like have you like incorporated a permanent safety protocol, like this has to be taken care of whether pandemic, whether no pandemic, however the world is in the future, like we need to take care of these things at least.
We try to. We follow the WHO standards thoroughly. We have upped our housekeeping sort of routines. We have made it a lot more in depth. We have reduced intake in terms of there's a government restriction in terms of how many people you can take in per square
Correct.
meter, and I think that applies to everybody in the world. So we've been following that. So we have been thoroughly following whatever the WHO standards are, and it's a pretty detailed and well thought out mandate. And I think a lot of those things we were already doing, but a few of those things have been added on to it because of the pandemic. And we strictly stick to those numbers.
So I think this, to sum this thing up, it it just feels like the pandemic is now getting everyone prepared for any such thing happening in the future. Like what you have to do. Maybe it won't be the same, obviously, because every pandemic would be different with its time.
We don't want
But
any more pandemics. One is
yeah,
enough.
but we just hope that there are no more pandemics. So it just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about hope now. It's all about living with hope. Yeah, and so what is happening is that everyone's wondering right now. Like there was a time when I could pick up my bag and just go, to travel. Like I would decide in the morning, book a flight. I've done that. Like I decided by 7 p.m. and by 11 p.m. I was already on a flight, flying to Southeast Asia. Do you think those times will ever come back in
Of
this
course, they'll
industry?
come
Do
back.
you think?
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely comes back. Listen, there was a pandemic 100 years back, right?
Correct.
So we are here. We when we just came out of pandemic, we were just coming out of World War I, and that was a double whammy. The pandemic spread because a lot of obviously the soldiers moved back into their own countries and they brought the pandemic with them. I'm sorry, the virus with them. But from then on, we have industrialized our economies. We have built new infrastructure. We have built a new world, and we have moved away from an agrarian economy to where we are today. We have an information technology revolution. You had to get up in the morning and get to work every day. Now you don't have to. You can sit at home and
Correct.
work from wherever you are. So what we need to sort of sit and understand here is that your need to get up and go was high because you were expected to stay in a certain place 99% of the time.
Correct.
When that expectation is not there anymore, you don't need to get up and go. You can be anywhere you want to be.
Makes sense.
Right? So this is a first principles change. It changes in terms of, somebody was tying you down and asking you to sit in the office every day, and hence you needed a weekend. When somebody is telling you not to sit in the office every day or not to come to the office every day, but be wherever you want to be and work out of wherever you want to work out of, the concept of Saturdays and Sundays might not even exist anymore. People might end up working for 7 days for maybe 4 hours a day. So life can go in different directions. The world can go in different directions. Travel needs to also redefine its behavior to a large extent. Unless you're sort of catering to even if you're catering to what they call as a grey nomads, then you don't have to worry because they don't go to work. They can travel anytime they want.
Correct.
So certain amount of first principle thinking is required. Certain amounts of basic understanding of why we do what we do is required. And once when you put those frameworks in and look at the world from there, a lot of the questions that we ask may not even be existing anymore. So then what could be the new question that we could ask? Is the question that we should ask ourselves.
Correct. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Shashi, what I'm going to do is we've got a few questions, about 6 to 8 questions from the people who are watching us right now. So I'll just run through those questions and let's see if we can get some pointers out to them as well. So we've got a question from Aditi, which says, "Do you see the pandemic enforcing some permanent changes in the hotel's hospitality service functions or how it functions? And if yes, what are the top three changes?"
Wow. So she put me in a top three situation. what will change, right? That's what she's asked to just concise this question
Yeah,
to.
in the service function of it, what will change in the service function?
So hospitality is a very broad sector, right? Can she sort of tell us exactly which part of hospitality, if she's still watching this and interested in the answer, because it's a very broad question, I feel.
I think if Aditi can quickly put it up in the chat box, or else I think what we should do is we should just take it as hotel, which is you know yeah, hotels. Okay, so she also sent hotels in the chat box. So in the hotel industry.
Okay, so let's talk. Let's paint a picture. We are talking to a hotel which is about say 20, 25 beds, 30 beds, somewhere in whatever that near airport in Delhi or whatever the place is. Right. So what are the three things that they have to change? Um, there will definitely be certain amount of what do you call it as health data, bio something, I forgot the name for it. What essentially it means is that you need to definitely provide health information. You need to going forward provide your health data, and the data is not private anymore, and that's going to become public. So that is something that people need to get used to. To sharing
Correct.
their personal data and health data is important.
Yes.
Um, so there is, going to be a lot more checks and balances that will probably come into these hotels. So getting away with illegal activities are not going to be easy anymore. So people need to understand that's the second most important thing that's going to change.
Correct.
Third thing, obviously, would be is what would be the third thing? I think a lot more, if you're an operator, I think there will be a lot more inspection. There will be a lot more questions asked. There will be a lot more independent bodies coming in and certifying your hygiene standards and things like that might be something that you might want to look at, because people will have to spend money on that. Just
Correct.
like how you get your, I don't know, ISO certifications and stuff like that in manufacturing industry, you might probably will need your own certification introduced by, if there's any entrepreneur listening to this, maybe this is the best time to start that. A company which will come in and third party or sort of validation of your hygiene standards and everything else to give people that confidence. These are
Correct.
the three
Correct.
things I think as an operator you might have to go through as a change, I feel. And this is broadly, I'm coming off the cuff, so this is not researched data. So
Correct. So I think in the very near future, just once things have settled down, I feel hotel hotels would not be able to rely on the kind of reviews they get digitally, but it would be more about what they do, or what they are doing to take care of the people coming in actually at a different level,
it's
not
also
just by
rigged,
giving them.
right? I mean, these all ratings and reviews are severely rigged.
Yeah.
They game the system like how? I mean, it's totally rigged. It needs
So
to change.
it's like people are now not going to expect, okay, I'm getting free breakfast, so I should take this hotel. It's going to be more about what else is the hotel doing to take care of me as a guest in that space for
Yeah,
the period
do
of
they
time
have
that
an
I'm living.
in-house doctor? Do they have, I don't know, whatever the certification that you might need? Do they have a pandemic or rather a virus testing facility? Do they have a disinfection chamber? Do they have,
Correct.
like you have your bomb detection, radar screening, blah, blah, blah stuff? You might have to add a lot of different things to it.
Correct.
Again, it
Correct.
depends on who we are looking at in the market, right? Because there are, if you take in, globally also speaking, there are different sizes of these hotels. And certain times, my biggest fear is that small guys might actually just get wiped out during this process because they
So
won't be able to make economic sense.
So with this thing, with the thing that you said last, there is a question which is there from Niharika, which says that word is going around that branded and luxury hotels will be preferred more due to their higher safety standards. In this situation, what is in store for hostels and co-living spaces?
This is already happening in a lot of places around the world, where there's an aggressive consolidation of brands where people are going out and picking up properties. Which are of a certain size, obviously. If you're smaller than that, then you're left, unfortunately, to yourself. Um, so that's a very interesting situation and a question to be in, right? So what happens to somebody who's like a mom and pop shop? Um, They might continue to exist, I feel, but economically it might be very difficult for them to sustain. So, they probably somebody would come up with another business model to help them revive, or they probably will, be categorized as a new mom and pop category, and then something like an Oyo might come on top of that. I guess I don't know. Possibility
Correct.
exists, but it's quite challenging for them for sure. They will have to like if you're in European countries, if you're in, let's say, for example, countries which are developed countries, I think a lot of funding is accessible through banks and through bigger brands, and who would sort of pick up these businesses and upgrade them, and hence consolidation of into a bigger brand and stuff like that might happen. If you don't have access to capital, let's say, for example, in markets which are developing countries, and if you're dependent on your own capital, there might be some support that could come from the industry, but might not necessarily be enough. So, acquisition, what is it like? Hospitality is a 49% FDI right now in India. It's 49, right?
Yep, yep. As to what I am aware of, yes.
I'm not entirely sure, but if that is the case, then maybe the percentage of FDIs might go up, and there might be 100% foreign direct investments that might start to come in, and further consolidation. So it'll create quite a bit of organization and consolidation of the marketplace overall at a very, very high level.
So consolidation would be something that could maybe counter-react to what people would consider that only luxury hotels are going to be able to provide us the safety standards. But
Yeah.
in some way, I feel that uh, luxury standards come with a price.
Hmm.
So for each one, for each person, his luxury standard is different. It's for me, there might be some standard which might be considered luxury. For you, there might be a standard which is considered luxury. So yes, I think that's you know this is a kind of question which can put you in a fix in terms of
No, I think
how.
it's a good question because
Yeah,
what we need to understand is health safety is not a luxury anymore. What
correct.
we're discussing here is, basic health and basic sort of safety and regulations. That may not be a luxury anymore. That becomes a norm. You have no
Yeah,
choice. You go back in the days, people would, documentaries you can go and watch on YouTube. Where, if you've been to this place called Versailles in Paris, people at that point in time would be peeing inside Versailles on the side next to the court hall, right? I mean, there would be people spitting and peeing and shitting, and it's not the Versailles that you go and see today. It was
correct.
basically a Versailles that people were shitting and spitting and peeing inside the palace, for heaven's sake, and also outside the palace in the corners. And that place was his spot. It was stinking so badly because there was no sanitation, there was no pipe sanitation, none of that stuff existed back in the day. So then they had to work all of those things out, and they had to put out all of that infrastructure. And then now you've got sanitation in pipes. And even today, I mean, if you remember what happened in London, the flooding of the Thames, of all the sewage water that came in from London created such a huge problem, such a huge health hazard. So the government had to put money in to change all of those things in order to keep the city clean, and then sanitation and all of those things came. So going
Correct.
forward, just like how sanitation became a norm, not a luxury anymore, including for people who lived in Versailles, going forward, I think safety and health regulations and these basic standards of hygiene will become a norm, not a luxury anymore. So
Correct.
just to sort of set that context and what
So
we call luxury.
yeah, possible. Yes, makes sense. Makes sense. Totally makes sense. We've got the next question from Ariman. What strategies need to be adopted in order to ensure that the hotel rooms are offering the best services in this pandemic time to the customers?
So I think you might want to sort of stand for something, right? I mean, being everything to everybody might be a difficult position to take in the market going forward. You might want to be something, or rather everything for somebody. In this
Correct.
case, it could be, let's say, for example, let's take our own shameful business plug, right? So might be our own business plugin. So we don't necessarily stand for, I mean, we are open for everybody, but we are specifically catering to a certain segment of the population, which are entrepreneurs and startups and stuff like that, which means that we stand very strongly for one section of the population of the society. So we don't only care about our own existence as a business, but we also care about the well-being of the community, which is helping them raise money, education programs, mentoring programs, building
Correct.
ecosystems, a lot of the other things that we do, which becomes your value-added services. You're, you got to think differently, right? You cannot think like, okay, could I put a pool, could I put a massage, could I put a bar or business center, a rooftop terrace restaurant, whatever it is, and call it value-added services? No, those are not value-added services at all. I think going
Correct.
forward. Right? So going forward, you might want to stand for a very specific something for somebody and try to see how you can, even if you're a small property, more so you have to do that. And then you see how you can build a small ecosystem around supporting those interests of people. For example, let's say you are living in, you have the, and I saw a friend of mine, he might be on this call and listening to it as well, who used to run a hostel in Banaras. And we were talking about this in one of those places in Goa at a conference. And I think Vanda was also there on that conference. So after that, we were talking about how can we turn that space into a hostel which is focusing on giving people, or rather, giving people the taste of Banaras. Right? It stands for Banaras. So when you're looking at scaling that space, let's say, for example, in the rest of the country, instead of going and becoming something else, you should take a piece of Banaras into the different location,
Correct.
right? So you could be, can you take a piece of Amsterdam into Paris? Can you take a piece of Berlin into Delhi? That could become your USP. That could, people who love Berlin will come to stay with you because you've got the vibe of the Berlin when you walk into your space. So like that, it could be a city, it could be a culture, it could be it could be an experience, it could be an interest, it could be anything. Just pick one thing that you're good at, which your market is good at, which you think you can build a community around, and pivot your services in that direction post pandemic for you to become something for everything for somebody.
Correct. Makes sense. So there are a lot of questions coming in, Shashi, today. We've got Reshma who is asking that do you see luxury hotels rates increasing or decreasing post pandemic, given that they've been closed for the longest time?
I don't think. I don't know, honestly speaking, because I don't stay at luxury hotels. Yes, just about yesterday we were searching for 2 nights of stay at the Leela in Bangalore because one of our colleagues is you know no, it was blew a surprise. So we were looking for something, and then we saw that the prices were around the same. It had not changed. Um, I don't know what they're thinking, honestly. I haven't spoken to one to really understand what they're thinking. So I don't think I have an answer for that question. Sorry.
Okay, so moving on, we have a question from Srishti. Will renting private accommodations for longer run become more cost effective owing to the fact that a lot of travel for the masses happens on a budget?
How is that question connected? I'm trying to understand.
So let's frame it a little better. Let's try framing it in a way. Is
So will
okay.
long-term rentals become more often? Is a question, right?
Yeah, will renting private accommodation for the longer for a longer. So I think renting private accommodation on a longer stay for a long stay, would it become more cost effective?
What's
Owing
the
to the
private accommodation mean?
I think maybe like a homestay or a vacation rental or a
Yeah,
vacation lease or something.
yeah. I think so. I think so. If you look at Maldives, if you look at Barbados, right? So all of these island countries have started to turn their hotel and resort properties into mid-term to long-term settlements for a lot of people. There are
Okay.
enough and more homeless people in this world who need a place to stay. Forget about homeless people, that's a different problem. But I think there are a lot of people who would love to get out of cities and move into somewhere in Barbados and sit and work for Microsoft maybe with a good internet connection and
Correct.
live a very different life. And that's, a part of that you would probably see happening in Bali, because Bali market is like that, right? So you have a lot of hospitality sort of infrastructure that's built in Bali, but a lot of people who go there actually live for longer durations of time. Hence, go and you get so many villas in Bali with that
Yeah.
such cheap prices. I mean, nobody lives in a hotel room in Bali, to be honest. Everybody who's staying for long durations of time want to live in a beautiful Balinese villa. So, like that will happen for sure. I think what you've seen as a sample of what's happening in Bali might end up becoming a case study in a different other places if you have the properties like that. Yeah.
Correct. So, moving on to the next question is Nupur, who's asking that the focus on hygiene and sanitation is currently COVID-19 induced. People are focusing on it currently. Do you think this is just a behavioral change which will be long term, or this behavioral change will it be long term, or once a vaccine comes, everything's just going to go back to normal?
Yeah, I think human tendency is to forget about these things quite fast, right? Next, next elections or another celebrity death or another new political scandal, we will forget about pandemic post vaccine. Quite
Yeah, I
possible.
think yeah, it is
Mm,
quite possible
it is quite possible. I would definitely say it's quite possible.
because
The
everyone
same,
everyone we speak to right now, everyone has the same thing. We're just waiting for the vaccine. Once the vaccine comes, everything's going to be back to normal.
people will throw
It's
parties, man. People will throw parties. The people will never stop partying. I tell you this.
yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
be a crazy big party time.
It happened in the States, right? Even though the pandemic had hit, people were still celebrating their spring break, and they were still out on the beaches. There were a lot of videos which circulated where people were saying that it's life. One person has to die someday, so why not while partying and all. So
I
I
think
think
more than the profound reason of what we call as life, I think Americans think that it's freedom, and I think they do it for their self. They do it for liberty and freedom, not necessarily
correct,
for a profound reason. Everybody at least, I think.
correct. So moving on, we've got one question from Vandita. The pandemic will see a lot of places shutting down, a lot of spaces and places shutting down. How do you think these resources or spaces would be used? I think this takes us back to the kind of point which you raised about consolidation. So
Yeah.
maybe something like that.
No, I think she's probably referring to places like commercial real estate, or could be referring to things like shutting down of hotels and what happens to a hotel. And I think a bit of living spaces could always be converted into some sort of a living space and still be let out. But working
Correct.
spaces are a big challenge, right? I mean, how many warehouses can you pull out, and how many sort of I don't know. Maybe they would become gaming centers. I don't know. They could become schools and universities. They could become, I don't know, ghost towns. Who knows, right? I mean, anything is possible. People are not using. Then I think the industry will step in, government will step in, and they will start sort of, telling you turn that into a manufacturing park, or turn that into a factory. You might move more and more towards manufacturing economy, because again, I'm giving, one of the India context, but globally speaking, also you might have a lot more um, manufacturing coming back into their borders. So you could potentially use those places
Correct.
for micro factories and small factories. Supply chain is a big problem anyway. It's broken. You could turn them into indoor farms, artificially grown vegetables. I don't know, you could do that. And a lot of those things, innovation will pop up, because now is going to be the next 5 to 10 years is going to be the time for innovation, right? So if you have seen what happened in 2008, or Couchsurfing was an improvised version. Sorry, Airbnb was an improvised version of Couchsurfing.
Correct.
Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, and all of these guys gave birth to the sharing economy, which we have enjoyed all of these times. And hence, you've got the companies like Oyo and Ola and all of these guys on the streets of India, for example, and then companies like that world over also. All of these things came up only because of the financial crisis that hit us in 2008.
Correct.
2008, when people started losing jobs, people wanted to put everything and anything that they could get their hands on to, earn the passive income in order to make it through. So hence they opened up their second bedrooms, their second cars,
Correct.
and their free times and all of that stuff. So that led to an entire new economy of the shared economy that we have brought us till 2020. So now
Correct.
post-pandemic, uh, it will give birth to a new economy with a bunch of another sort of innovation, which might take us out of the current situation by putting these spaces to better use. And what that innovation can be is anybody's guess, or any local markets need. I think one has to keep an eye on what the local really market needs, and try to plan it to that. Oh, my battery is dying. Hang on a minute. Sorry for that.
No worries. No
Yeah,
worries.
I think so. I don't know if I have a straightforward answer for that, but it's a very open. It's a green field. Anybody's
Correct.
guess.
I feel many of these larger spaces, just a feeling that 40 to 50% should honestly be put towards the medical industry. Seeing how people in India are suffering with no beds available, they converted empty spaces into quarantine centers, into medical facilities, just overnight. So I think, yeah, even the medical fraternity needs a lot of maybe investment, a lot of research and development right now, to so that we do not have a pandemic happen again.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe. Yeah, we should.
And so I think we're down to about 8 minutes remaining, but there are a few questions from just a minute. Okay, there's a lot of questions, and I'm just trying to figure which ones we've
Yeah,
already
yeah.
answered.
Filter it, filter it. Take your time. I'm enjoying
Yeah.
my
So
Sunday
we
morning.
have we have one from Kitty. Do you think with the help of technology, something like no contact check-in, etc., do you think that will become one of the most important tools in the hospitality industry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It already has in different parts of the world. It's already a thing, right? I mean, like our space in Lisbon is now moved to a bit of a contactless check-in, a sort of a
Wow.
contactless check-in. Only because of health standards, and at the same time, you don't need to open a 24 hours reception for sometimes one or two people coming in the middle of the night.
Correct.
It's just not efficient, right? I mean, it's all about efficiency. And also, the kind of people that we are targeting are smart enough to download an app and, or punch a key into a safe and take the card and walk in. So I think a lot of those things will start to happen. People will be expected to trust a lot more, and I think it will be easy to trust a lot more because going forward, people will ask for your health data, your personal, identity information, and all of that kind of stuff. And maybe they'll have some more deposits that you will have to give before you get into a hotel room because we are a self check-in space and we want to make sure that you don't steal anything and go back, and all of that stuff will have to be sort of sorted out.
Correct.
But automation, home automation, industrial automation, in the hospitality space, especially the space automation, is going to be a big business. And I think China already has all the technology that we need today to turn it into a completely technology driven space. So it's a matter of time, I think, that will be enforced
Correct. Correct.
in places which already have not started.
Yeah, and so now we have, I think, the last two questions left. One is from Hetal. Draper has hostels in different countries. In these past few weeks, have some locations seen better traction than others? I think you had answered it. You had already answered it when we were chatting before that. How Lisbon was affected a lot, and Southeast Asia and Bali. Maybe you had people coming in because they were locked in out there. But if you
Yeah.
can just give a quick review on that.
That's a good question. I think Lisbon is doing pretty good in the sense it's turned around itself a bit, and then we have people coming in and staying with us now. We have at least about it's a 55, 60 bed facility. I think we might have in the house this weekend about 10 or 12 people, I guess. From 0 to 12 is a good number. And, even in our Bangalore space, which I'm directly in charge of, has started seeing some small improvements. We had about 25% occupancy for a very long time in the last 4 or 5 months. And now I think we're moving up to 30, 35, slowly inching towards 30, 35. Some similar things are happening in places like Bali and Thailand and other places because see, Europe is going through summer, so there's a summertime. You'll definitely see some people traveling in. And Bangalore also is a business center, business city, so a lot of people are coming in right now using this time to sort of get their business moving. So some similar things are happening in Singapore and other places. So slowly things are starting to move, but honestly, as strange as it might sound, I've not lived in India through a pandemic situation. I've never lived in India
Oh,
through a pandemic situation. I've lived through curfews, I've lived through political rallies, and I've lived through civil unrest a little bit here and there. But I've never lived in my life in India during a pandemic because it's never happened in my lifetime. For heaven's sake, the first
correct.
time. So I don't know how life in India is, how difficult it is. Whatever I'm gathering is out of just intellectual information, not experiential information. I'm talking to my family, I'm talking to my colleagues, I'm talking to my friends, and trying to understand how difficult it is. But experientially, I don't know. Right, so
Correct.
I don't know what is going to make Indians travel because I'm guessing most of the audience here could be coming from India. So I'm sort of planning a lot of my answers to from the Indian context.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's slowly changing, but a lot has to happen. A lot more has to happen.
Yeah, in fact, every country, yes, no one knows, everyone feels that, okay, the grass is greener on the other side, but only the person living there actually knows how it might be, to actually live there, be in that position. I was actually even speaking to someone about 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who's from Kashmir, and what she happened to say, oh, lockdown, that's like a everyday thing for us, like it's yeah, for y'all it's very new that at least y'all have groceries open, at least y'all have a few stores open. We didn't have anything open. That's what a
They
lockdown is
should be
for us.
writing the standard operating procedure for lockdown. How to live
I
life.
swear. So
I mean, yeah, those guys have been living like that for I don't know how many decades now.
yeah, they've been brought up in that, so it gives you that it makes you think that what you are looking at a lockdown being okay, you have to stay in your house, you have to think about this, you have to do this. People have been living their life that way since so many decades. So that's something that I had come across, and it was a different feeling altogether. Like, personally I felt bad in one way, but I was even feeling lucky in one way that I have not been a part of something like that. And
Yeah.
okay, so one quick last question. I think we have just about 1 minute to go.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
can you throw some light on the luxury hotel that don't rely on community? They majorly rely on activities like accommodation and food.
Then I would say team up with someone like us who do community stuff. Figure out how you can work with someone like us. And yeah, I mean that's what I can say. If you community building is not everybody's cup of tea, we understand that. Certain brands are built for different reasons. My recommendation is to go find a community, service provider who can become a community part of the system. You can talk to us, as I said, if you're a luxury hotel. But yeah, that's what I would say to keep the nice plug. Of course, I gave you 1 hour of my time and all of the experience and knowledge. I will plug my business. No,
Correct.
that's what I would say. That's what I would say, right? Uh, Go find partners. That's a short answer.
Perfect.
If you
Perfect.
want a long one, I would
So
have
I think
given you.
Vandita was the one who sent in that question. So she is going to be connecting with you soon. And for the attendees, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's session. And if you guys have any question, I'm sure Shashi would be on LinkedIn. You might want to connect with him. Drop in your question along with when you connect, in your connection request. And I thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Shashi. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Akshit.
Amazing getting some insights, and I was glad we kept this as a conversation and not direct questions.
Yeah,
So
I would
I
have
think
hated
it's super
Yeah,
perfect. Thank
I
you
like
so much,
this.
Shashi.
Thank you so much, guys. Have fun, have enjoy yourself, and get inspired to whatever.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Shashi.
Cheers.